were trying her in American courts with Israel. They were trying to do it under Israeli law in American courts. Yeah. Yeah. We had the whole story on Empire Files. It's unbelievable stuff, man. I mean, one more case of just how crazy this is, because it's not just people who are advocates of Palestine. I wasn't even going to talk about Palestine when I gave this lecture, when I was going to give this lecture. This happened to hurricane relief workers in Texas after Hurricane Harvey. They could not get money for infrastructure unless they signed this pledge, unless they signed a contract pledging that they would not boycott Israel.
Why does that have anything to do with hurricane relief?
It's anything. It's any state contractors in any of these states.
So any state contractor has to sign this thing saying you can never boycott Israel.
And you can never advocate.
And that's the only way you can get money from the state.
Right.
What? That is so bananas. That's so fucking crazy that it extends to hurricane relief.
Substitute
Holy
teachers,
shit.
construction workers.
Really?
I mean, really, anyone.
So if you're a substitute teacher and you're making money from the state, you can't criticize Israel.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Is it you can't criticize them or you can't advocate for boycotts?
You can't advocate for boycott.
So you can't criticize them to the point where it would somehow or another financially affect them.
Which is a slippery slope, because it's like that's kind of
Anything
one and the other. I mean, if
them.
you are saying Israel's an apartheid state, that is essentially implying that you are boycotting them in some way. So it is like a very gray area.
Fuck.
It's wild, dude. It's wild.
We don't have a relationship like that with any other country.
No.
Why do we have a relationship like that with Israel?
Well, Israel serves as an important outpost in the Middle East, just like Uganda does in Africa. Uganda is neighbors with Somalia and Sudan, the two countries that Wesley Clark said they wanted to topple during the Bush administration. So Uganda serves as that point in Africa. Colombia serves as our outpost in Latin America, neighboring Venezuela. We pour tens of millions of dollars to, militarize them and do all this shit there in the region. And Israel is our outpost in the Middle East, as well as Saudi.
We should probably play that clip, because that clip is very important.
Unbelievable,
It's see if you can find the Wesley Clark's U.S. plan. What year was that, 2007?
Oh, my God. Yeah, just look up 7 countries in 5 years.
Yeah, it was somewhere in the early 2000s. Wesley Clark, who was a general, decorated general,
high-ranking general,
was discussing what he knows of the world's plan.
And, I mean, basically, Israel serves as an important strategic partnership with the U.S. military because we can manage operations. We can use them as a battering ram and a military garrison out there.
There's a video of it, Jamie, where you can hear Wesley. He's doing some sort of interview. He may be doing a recap.
Yeah, I think he's talking to Amy Goodman or something like that. But look, it's a resource-rich
you're right. That's
region.
It right
there.
Yeah,
let's check it out.
I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later. And by that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, "I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense office today." And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Wild.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a resource-rich region. The Middle East is highly resource-rich. We wanted to stake our claim in the region, and Israel's the perfect outpost for that. And, when Israel went on that war of aggression in 1967, I think the U.S. was like, "Hey, we can fucking use you. You've done well." And which actually is interesting, because a lot of people think the tail wags the dog. Oh, Israel controls the U.S. No, it's very obviously that the U.S. is using Israel for its military goals and regional domination, which means that it can be untenable, which means that we can make it inconvenient for the U.S. to care about subsidizing Israel. They don't give a shit. If enough pressure is mounted, they will abandon the project. They have similar goals, but not congruent goals and interests. They don't care if Israel takes over all of Palestine. That doesn't really matter to the U.S. political establishment.
Do you think that part of the way this is all playing out is because of the fact that they're backed up by the United States, and the United States gives them like these crazy laws, like what you faced in Georgia, and they have these sort of the attitude over here that like this is our guard dog over there. Like we'll let this thing loose. We'll do whatever we can to support them because we need them. We need them to protect our assets over there, and so we empower them in a wild way, like in not ever talking about these atrocities and really kind of glossing over the things that you've highlighted.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's totally subsidized by the U.S. And that's why during the Great March of Return, you saw these toothless resolutions passed by the UN being like, we condemn Israel. And the U.S. has veto power on the world stage. There's something called the Hague Invasion Act that says if you even try to indict U.S. officials for war crimes, you can fucking be invaded by the U.S. I mean, there's so much power and domination from the U.S. as the supplier and backer of these states like Saudi Arabia and Israel that no one can do anything about it until we act here.
Is there propaganda that the Israeli people are exposed to that gives them this perspective? Like, is there a concerted effort to try to demonize the people that live in Palestine? Do they try to do this to make it so that they do accept these sort of dehumanizing tactics?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, absolutely. It'd probably be the same propaganda that was given to Americans during Jim Crow. It's like, you don't have the other side of the story.
Or to the Germans.
Oh my God, yeah,
during
of
World
course.
War II.
And that's really, it's a dark truth, but it is very similar. One of the smears against me is that I compared Israel's tactics to Nazi Germany, and that's actually no longer controversial anymore. I mean, you just have to look at what they're doing today, and even Holocaust survivors have said that these are very similar mentalities and similar atrocities being carried out.
But it was controversial at the time because there wasn't the kind of media coverage in mainstream media, which is where everybody was getting their news.
Right.
So these controversial, small, independently operated media units like yours that would go over there and report things, they were sort of dismissed and marginalized, right? Is that fair to say?
100%. Part of the manufacturing of consent.
Did you get anybody from any mainstream, whether it's MSNBC or whoever, who wanted to talk to you about your work?
Not one person, Joe, and I think we know why. I'm persona non grata because of multiple reasons. The Russia media stuff. I worked for Russia Today. So right off the bat, I'm a Russian disinformation agent no matter how long I'm out in the field, independently operated and grassroots funded. I'm done. Well,
you were working for Russia Today, and I think the way I was describing this to a friend, I said, I bet they thought that if you got this woman who talks a lot of shit about American imperialism and you hire her for Russia Today, that'd be a pretty good scoop. You got this very articulate American woman who's talking shit about the American empire. Whoops, what's she saying about Crimea? Oh no, like when and they're like, oh no, this bitch like hates all imperialism. Fuck, I thought she was on our side. Like when you started going against what Putin was doing in Crimea, and then they invited you to go to Crimea and put shoes in the ground, you're like, get the fuck out of here. You knew your time there was.
Oh, it was up. Yeah, it was up. I mean, what's funny about it is that my boss cared so much about just aesthetics. He was just obsessed about like the set, and he didn't even really care about like the politics. But what was interesting is that he got so much heat from what I did. From, I don't know, I think the higher ups, I think half of them really liked what I did because I was trying to assert my editorial freedom and being like, look, this isn't just a Russian propaganda network. You need people out there who are criticizing Russia. Yes. So I think half the people were like, yeah, let's do it, and the other half of the people were like, fuck no, you're done. And so what happened was it just became impossible for me to do my job, and I wasn't stepped on in terms of my editorial freedom.